What is going on, world? What's up, YouTube? It's Zero here. Today I'm bringing you guys a brand new episode of the 8 Below Show. Welcome everyone to 8 Below. Thanks for being here, guys, to the best entertainment-related show here on YouTube. And I'm super excited about our episode here today. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, so let's get into it. State of Decay is one of those franchises that I don't have a lot of familiarity with because I haven't played the first two games. However, after watching the Xbox Game Showcase, I've stated recently that I was definitely going to get into State of Decay and at least try these games out. I've had friends that have stated that they're really fun games, and after watching the trailer for State of Decay 3, I'm convinced to try this game out. And you would think that I would have already made the plunge into this, franchise because I'm really big into horror games. And this one definitely seems, at least with State of Decay 3, looks like they're really ramping up the sheer amount of terror that is coming, into this franchise. And it's definitely Xbox's take on going after or competing against that of The Last of Us. And you can definitely see that from the trailer, guys. And I gotta say, this was personally the dark horse trailer to me at Xbox Game Showcase. Obviously, people were really excited to see, the reveal of Fable. Lots of people were excited about Avowed, which is the Obsidian game that's coming out, that's going to take on Elder Scrolls. We were excited about, even portions of, of Halo Infinite, even though a lot of it was pretty underwhelming. There were portions that were good, but State of Decay 3 looks terrifying in a number of ways, guys. It looks like one of those really intense horror games. And State of Decay 3, after watching this trailer, it sold me on this idea that I definitely want to try these games out. Sure, we didn't get any gameplay or we didn't, get anything of that nature. But what we did see, guys, was a very well-crafted trailer, to say the least, as far as from a horror perspective. You look at this trailer, you see the girl in the beginning of it near a fire, and you see a wolf in the distance, and she screams at the wolf. The wolf runs, and then, or kind of like walks away, and then she's, walking down a pathway, following a blood trail, holding a crossbow, very much so reminiscing of like The Last of Us. And then, of course, looks up and you see that same wolf or a different wolf. It's hard to tell. I think it might have been the very well the same wolf. And what's eating it is like an infected deer. And the deer screams at her. And that was a very chilling trailer. I thought it was very well executed. Probably the best trailer, in my opinion, at the Xbox Game Showcase as far as crafting it and from a creative perspective. And so with that, though, guys, this is definitely one of my most anticipated games now, up and coming. Now, we don't know when it's coming out. I don't know if it's going to be a launch title for the Xbox, Series X, or if it's going to come out like in 2021. You can just tell, though, what Xbox is doing, and we've already talked about this on the YouTube channel, that they are definitely, trying to be the Netflix of gaming, with Xbox Game Pass having a bunch of exclusives, having more exclusives than anybody else out there, buying up all of these different, companies, that being, developers and such, and a lot of them have really good reputations, and State of Decay 3 looks like the competition to that of, say, something like The Last of Us. And that's exciting to me because I think added competition really brings out, your best work sometimes. And with that, we see obviously with Obsidian bringing out Avowed, they are obviously competing against Elder Scrolls. You've got now, obviously, a lot of these Xbox exclusives are actually going to look like they want to directly compete against Sony's exclusives. It's the battle of the exclusives. It's not so much, sure, it's still a battle of the consoles and these console wars that are going on, but I think it's now the battle of the exclusives. And so State of Decay 3, like I said, from an outsider's perspective, looking at knowing nothing about this franchise so far, and I'm definitely going to be changing that here shortly, but from an outsider's perspective, this is definitely a take to go up against The Last of Us, and I love it. I absolutely love that they're moving in this direction. Now, I don't know if the first two Obviously, I'd seen gameplay from the first two. I've seen, trailers and things of that nature. But this was the first one, in my opinion, that really told me that they are taking a significant approach to compete against The Last of Us. And games, of course, within the horror space that are the like. I mean, we even talk about The Medium. We talk about, Stalker 2. We talk about a bunch of these games that have like these thriller and horror elements to them. And I just look at that and I see Xbox is taking a real big approach here. And so with that, State of Decay 3, guys, this is a game that will, hopefully be coming out maybe at launch, maybe a little bit after launch, and maybe comes out in 2021. But this could be one of their flagship horror games that they have. And I think that's definitely what's going to happen here with State of Decay 3. It's interesting, and it looks very unnerving. It looks like just, a sheer amount of terror in this franchise, to say the least, as far as from just looking at this third trailer from State of Decay 3. And that's what I'm excited about, guys. I'm excited about this game, and it's definitely on my most anticipated list at this point. But what did you guys think about State of Decay 3? Are you guys excited about it? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more State of Decay 3 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. The Uncharted series is certainly one of my favorites, guys, from PlayStation as far as a PlayStation exclusive is concerned. And obviously, I think Naughty Dog has done an incredible job overall with the Uncharted franchise up until The Lost Legacy, which I didn't like quite as much as, of course, the 4 core games within the series. But with that being said, we're definitely looking forward to maybe a potential return here to the Uncharted franchise. And with that, I wanted to talk about the top 5 things that we want in Uncharted 5. And when I say we, guys, I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts and opinions here. Some of you may share similar opinions, some of you may not. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys want to see in Uncharted 5, should it ever come out. So let's get into it. So as I said, guys, this is a game that is not confirmed. There have been rumblings that they would continue this franchise, that being, of course, Naughty Dog. There's been talk that it will not continue because A Thief's End was pretty much the conclusion. And then, of course, they had, The Lost Legacy come out. But we're going to go based on the rumblings and speculation that Uncharted 5 is coming out. And at number 1 for me, guys, I want to see this story continue in some capacity with a totally new character that is that we're helming, that we are, controlling from the get-go. I, of course, want to see Nathan Drake continue to be a part of this franchise, but I think his time as the focal point in the franchise is done. It's time for us to move on to a new character that we can he can pass the torch on to that next character, and he's still, still a character that's within the franchise and is there, but isn't the focal point, isn't the playable character, so to speak. Now, maybe in the multiplayer aspects, which we'll get to here later, you can, of course, play as Nathan Drake, but I just think it would be really good, the next generation of console and for, with PlayStation and the next generation of Uncharted games, I think it's time that we move on. And there's nothing wrong with that. When we look at games like Gears of War, Marcus Phoenix was the main guy, and then he passed the torch to JD, his son, and then JD passed it on to Kate Diaz, who we helm in Gears 5. So what I'm getting at is that it's hard to move on from the main characters, but sometimes it's necessary to see the continuation of those franchises moving forward. That leads me to number 2, which is, guys, it's going to be really important that there are definitely some similarities, but definitely some differences as well. That being new locations, new enemies, some new, just environments as a whole, and even some new characters, as I stated. Having existing characters is really important from the other games, so there's that familiarity, but there's also going to be, new characters and new enemies and such that our characters are going to have to go up against throughout the course of the story, and I think that's going to be really important. The locations as well, guys. Having familiar locations, but new locations as well, always adds so much to this as a story, as Uncharted as a story and such. And I think that overall, there needs to be some change to the Uncharted series to see it really progress forward. That leads me to number 3, which is multiplayer and co-op. Now, we've seen it in the past, guys, with some of the Uncharted games, but I think it's going to be really important that the continuation of multiplayer is there. and it progresses in a major way where there's, a lot more that you're able to do, different game modes and such, lots of customization for your characters and such. Earnable items over payable items is like a big thing that I've been stating on the YouTube channel here when it comes to some of these games. Having things that you can earn within the multiplayer, earn within the co-op modes or the co-op missions. If that's, after you're done playing the single player story, you can move on and play, co-op missions with your friends or play multiplayer against, other people around the world. And it's a beautiful thing when you're able to have a full package like that, because after you beat the campaign a couple of times, you may decide just to move on to another game, most likely. And so this would keep you coming back, continue building the, the fan base that is, for Uncharted. And that leads me, guys, into number 4. This is going to be a little bit of a controversial one because I think that with Uncharted, there needs to be some changes, right? I think that one thing that makes Uncharted what it is at this point has been like this linear experience overall. But I think, widening that to an extent to a semi-open world setting could be something special where there's a little more exploration to be had here in this world. And even though, there's always going to be concern with that when there's change like that. However, we look at games like God of War that changed everything, about pretty much how the mechanics and everything of the game were put together, and it turned out to be a smash hit. The same thing with like Gears of War. From, all the Gears games up to Gears 5 were linear experiences, and then they changed it to a semi-open world setting in Gears 5, and people were really concerned about it when, it was announced that it was going to be semi-open world. But then when we got to actually explore, it was a beautiful thing. And so what I'm getting at is I would love to see that here with Uncharted. More ways to build upon the story, the lore that is Uncharted as a whole. And that leads me, guys, into number 5, which I think is a really important one for, this franchise moving forward. The bigger that Naughty Dog has been getting, from, of course, Uncharted as well as The Last of Us, I think that they could have multiple teams working on multiple projects. And so what I think is, imperative here is that we don't just get one more Uncharted game. This game, Uncharted 5, would set up the next generation of Uncharted games for the future. And I think that would be really important. This is this franchise, guys, is a special one, to say the least. And there's a lot of people out there who absolutely love this franchise, and myself included. I absolutely love it, and it was, my favorite PlayStation exclusive until The Last of Us came out, which kind of took the, to me at least, kind of took the throne of the PlayStation exclusives. But nonetheless, I think it's important that they set up the next generation here of, the Uncharted games as a whole. And I think that's going to be something that people will look forward to and people are hoping for as well, is if we get an Uncharted 5, that it's not the last one. I think that people felt that, okay, Uncharted, for A Thief's End is pretty much the end of the story, but then you got The Lost Legacy. And so the question is are we going to get continuations, moving forward? And so I really am hoping that we see, continuation after, this game concludes. And, I want to see Uncharted continue. I think it's a game and a franchise that deserves to coexist with other games out there in the grand landscape of gaming. And with that, guys, those are the top 5 things that I want to see in Uncharted 5. What are the things that you want to see? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Uncharted 5 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. The 2017 Prey game from Arcane Studios was one that I really enjoyed, guys, and I've been looking forward to a continuation of this franchise in the future. And obviously, guys, Prey 2 was a game that was scheduled and got canceled. Now, of course, that was from Human Head Studios, and that game was obviously canceled. So this would be a direct continuation from, of course, Arcane Studios, Prey franchise that they started back in 2017. And so with that, I wanted to talk about all of the things, that being everything that we want in Prey 2. And when I say we, guys, I'll be giving you guys my thoughts and opinions, and I'd love to hear yours in the comment section down below. So let's get into it. So Prey 2, guys, what is it that we want to mainly see here moving into this second game? Well, first of all, I want to see it confirmed. I want to see this being a game that is going to come out at some point or another in the foreseeable future. And I think that Arcane Studios is definitely going to do it at some point. I'm hoping, simply because when we look at what they're kind of working on currently, and we look at they're working on Deathloop, and obviously it sounds like Dishonored is like kind of going to be on an indefinite hiatus at this point in time. So I think that if you have Deathloop coming out, I think Prey 2 may be coming shortly after Deathloop comes out. And Arcane Studios, like I said, I'm hoping, and I'm definitely gonna be. It's going to be one of those games that I'm going to be highly anticipated to play if it were to get announced. So the first thing is just to see it get announced would be great. Secondly, guys, I want to see a direct continuation from the first one. I want to see, more of the same. I want to see some differences, but I definitely want them to continue where they left off in the first one. I think there's so much to explore, so much to learn about the story, the lore that they're trying to build over at Arcane in this Prey universe. That leads me to having new characters, new enemies, new locations, new environments, new weaponry that we have at our disposal. Having all of these different things will definitely help, guys, to give you some form of differences from the first game. Sure, we're absolutely going to want to see some familiar characters, maybe some familiar, locations or environments. But overall, we want to see some differences as well, so that there's definitely a gap between the first game and the second one. And so I think having those things that are familiar to us, but the other things that are definitely differences will also be good moving forward. So with that leads me to the next thing, which I would love to see Prey go in this direction of, staying in like more of a horror realm than an action realm. And we see this happen all the time, guys, where with just horror games in general, a lot of times what happens is these franchises will go away from what makes them great, that being like the sheer terror and horror of the franchise, and they move in this direction of action over the horror, which obviously it's, that's not what the game's built on, right? You look at Dead Space, you look at a number of different titles out there. Dead Space, the first two games were, horror over action. It just had action elements in it. And then the third one had action over horror. So it had some horror elements, but it was mainly an action game. And so when you change it, obviously we see what happened with Dead Space, that franchise has been in indefinite hiatus at this point. Visceral Games gets shut down, and it ends up never seeing the light of day, that being a Dead Space 4. And so what I'm getting at is I think it needs to stay rooted to what made the first one great. And I think now, moving into the second one, sure, keeping there being like, action elements and such, but I think making this, even more and more of a horror title will be greatly appreciated. And that leads me to the next thing, guys. Having multiplayer and co-op modes, I think, is incredibly important moving into Prey 2 as well. Having ways that we can connect with the franchise after we're done playing the story, whether we want to play with our friends, whether we want to play with, other people out there in the world, even if it's like a PvE where you're playing with your friends and you're going up against waves and waves of enemies or whatever the case might be, I think having more ways than one to connect with the franchise is going to be very important in my personal opinion. And that leads me to the last thing here, guys, is I would love to see Prey have some free-to-play elements to it. Obviously, I want there to be, like maybe the multiplayer has like free-to-play modes or something that we're able to play, free, so that more and more people actually end up just trying the game out at the end of the day. That leads me to like customization and such, having more ways to customize your character and having more ways to customize, the weaponry and the things that you're using, whether if we're talking from a campaign perspective, co-op perspective, or multiplayer perspective. Having more ways, guys, like I said, to connect with the franchise, being able to have earnable items over payable items will be really important moving into this title as well. And I gotta say, I'm really excited about the idea of a second Prey game, especially coming from Arcane Studios. I think it could be something special. Let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys want to see in Prey 2? Let me know, and for more Prey 2 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. We've talked on the YouTube channel about Bioshock and the future of this franchise moving forward, and I wanted to go ahead, guys, and talk about everything that we know so far about Bioshock 4, because obviously this is a title that has been announced. Even though we don't know exactly what the title is going to be, we just know that a new Bioshock is coming at some point in the future. So let's get into it. So guys, in an article that was written by Justin Fernandez of Gaming Scan, publisher 2K Interactive has officially announced that a new Bioshock game is currently in development by Cloud Chamber, a recently founded studio comprised of two teams based in San Francisco, California and Montreal, Canada, respectively. Led by Kelly Gilmore, an industry veteran whose work includes franchises such as Civilization and XCOM, the new studio is described as a group of storytellers eager to push the front lines of interactive entertainment by making unique, entertaining, and thoughtful experiences that engage the world. Rumors that a new Bioshock game was being developed first emerged back in 2015 when 2K stealthily contracted Texas-based developer Certain Affinity to begin work on a project codenamed Parkside. The project would be canceled by the end of 2016 for reasons that are unclear, and then rebooted several times over the next few years. It's been more than a decade since the last entry in the franchise, Bioshock Infinite, released for PS3, Xbox 360, and PC. And so with that, Bioshock 4's release date and its platforms, aside from announcing a new studio, 2K's official press release briefly mentions that the next Bioshock iteration will be in development for the next several years. Considering that both the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X are releasing holiday of 2020, it's safe to assume Bioshock 4 will be coming to both platforms. Although it's still far too early to predict when the game will be released, our best guess would be the year 2022 at the earliest, more realistically sometime in 2024. I think a lot of it has to do with the scope, though, guys, of Bioshock 4. To me, as far as like when we'll probably hear word about it, I would say we're probably going to hear more about Bioshock 4 in 2021. Now, as far as are we going to get official image? Maybe we will. I would hope so. And then yes, it's probably going to be we're probably a couple of years away. This is a big project, guys, most likely. And depending on the scope of it, I think that it could be something absolutely massive, like this full open world setting and such. Who knows? But I'm super excited about it nonetheless. Given development has been scrapped and restarted multiple times since 2015, some concepts may have carried over and been retained. If this is the case, it would mean a shorter pre-production window for Bioshock 4. Now, as far as the story and setting, this is going to be a lot of speculation, guys, but as fans will have already known, Bioshock takes place in a multiverse with alternate timelines and events that play out differently depending on the actions of the player. This can make gouging the series' chronology quite tricky, especially when you calculate how much time has passed since Infinite was released and how little the average player is likely to remember. Therefore, we expect Bioshock 4 to be somewhat of a soft reboot, and I agree 100% with that. However, I would love to see this tie into Bioshock Infinite because of all the, I just think, guys, at the end of Bioshock Infinite, obviously, there's so many different worlds to experience, so many places to explore within this world, and so I would love to see a tie in one way or another. Now, additionally, it's likely to be set further in the future than previous entries and features an entirely new setting. The latest entry in terms of the series' timeline is Bioshock 2, set during the late 1960s, whereas the earliest game, Bioshock Infinite, takes place during the year 1912. And so, to maintain the series' overall tone, we imagine it won't stray too far from the original trilogy and likely be set sometime during the 1970s or 1980s. This seems like the most obvious direction to take, given that players have already explored every nook and cranny in Rapture multiple times and have seen just about everything the airborne city of Columbia has to offer. Besides, introducing a new setting in a different time will allow Cloud Chamber to incorporate new ideas and provide players with a fresh experience, rather than rehashing concepts from previous entries or revisiting old haunts. And I agree. I definitely want there to be some similarities, though. I do want there to be differences. I want Cloud Chamber to kind of have their own creative freedom here so that they can kind of give what it is that they feel is important to tell their story within the Bioshock universe. Bioshock is one of the most beloved, critically praised, and highest rated franchise of the last console generation. We can't wait to see where its powerful narrative and iconic first-person shooter gameplay head in the future with our new studio team at Cloud Chamber leading the charge. This quote from David Ismailer, president of 2K, confirms that Bioshock 4 will remain a first-person shooter despite whatever changes may take shape regarding its story. By utilizing the advanced hardware capabilities of next-gen consoles, we may see Cloud Chamber introduce new gameplay mechanics and systems to make Bioshock 4 truly stand out from earlier iterations. I have a hard time believing, though, guys, that it's going to take Cloud Chamber at least one game to kind of get their footing here. I mean, think of it like this. You know, when you have Ken Levine, I believe one of the most brilliant minds in all of gaming, when he stepped away from Bioshock for health reasons, for, family reasons and things of that nature, this franchise was in a, significant limbo state. And I think that you look at a series like Halo, right, where Halo had a number of games with Bungie that did it and created the game, and they created like this, this massive following. They created something really special over, with the Halo franchise. Well, when the torch was passed over to 343 Industries and they started doing it, Halo 5 obviously was not what people were hoping for as far as a continuation of the franchise. So it took them at least one game. We'll see with Halo Infinite what that looks like. But what I'm getting at is these developers are going to probably need at least a game to kind of get their footing in the universe and such. And then, moving forward from there, I would say that we could expect there's definitely a level of, perspective and what we should be expecting from these games moving forward. But you got to give them kind of one game to really get their footing, in my opinion. While the series' staples such as role-playing elements, special vigor abilities, and gears, the equivalent of tonics in the first Bioshock are sure to return in some form or another. We don't anticipate Infinite's grappling mechanic to make a comeback, given it felt definite to the game's setting. And then, of course, guys, Bioshock games have always pushed the envelope for first-person shooters while offering a compelling narrative and enough lore to keep players immersed across 3 games and 2 significant expansions. However, the series has a history of being plagued by development hell, likely the source of Bioshock 4's extensive cancellations and delays. The first and third entries took a significant toll on developer Rational Games, causing the studio to momentarily shut down, only to be later reborn as Ghost Story Games. Crunch for Bioshock 2 was so intense that after the game was released, Studio 2K Marin found it challenging to keep up with publisher 2K's expectations and was eventually silently closed down. We're hoping the future has better fate in store for Cloud Chamber and Bioshock 4 manages to delight fans who have been craving a new adventure for quite some time. And I agree, but look, guys, these are all things that we have to take into consideration. These games have had a history of being in a development hell cycle, and I think that Bioshock 4 has already been in a development hell where it's kind of gone through different hands. There's been creative differences probably, and then Cloud Chamber now is, basically given the task of taking on one of these very much so beloved franchises that is one of the most unique franchises in all of gaming. And so I'm hoping, that Bioshock 4 has some things that definitely keep us wanting more, and they are able to really expand upon the universe that was started with the first few games. And so we'll have to wait and see, guys. I mean, Bioshock 4, this is a game that, we know very little about. The main thing that we know is that it's coming, which at the end of the day, if you're a huge Bioshock fan, that should be very reassuring and very exciting, to say the least. I mean, we just don't know exactly when we're going to get our hands on it. So with that, though, guys, let me know what you guys think about Bioshock 4. At this point in time, knowing very little, what do you guys want to see from it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Bioshock 4 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. And with that being said, everyone, I hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the 8 Below Show. And if you guys did, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, stay positive, and as always, I'll talk to you guys all in the next one. Peace.